name is Erica Kirk. Charlie Kirk is my husband. Charlie always said that when he was gone, he wanted to be remembered for his courage and for his faith. Now and for all eternity, he will stand at his Savior's side, wearing the glorious crown of a martyr. Charlie loved life. He loved his life. He loved America, but most of all, Charlie loved his children, and he loved me with all of his heart, and I knew that. Every day I knew that. The evildoers responsible for my husband's assassination have no idea what they have done. They killed Charlie because he preached a message of patriotism, faith, and of God's merciful love. But they should all know this. If you thought that my husband's mission was powerful before, you had no idea. You have no idea what you just have unleashed across this entire country and this world. You have no idea. You have no idea the fire that you have ignited within this wife.
Oh, Charlie, you didn't deserve it. May God bless your family.
The cries of this widow will echo around the world like a battle cry.
People across the country are gathering, holding memorial services and vigils to honor Charlie Kirk's memory and his message.
To everyone listening tonight across America, the movement my husband built will not die. It won't. I refuse to let that happen. It will not die. It will become stronger, bolder, louder, and greater than ever. I promise I will never let your legacy die. I won't. I promise I'll make Turning Point USA the biggest thing that this nation has ever seen. Rest in the arms of our Lord as He blankets you with the words I know your heart always strives to hear. Well done, my good and faithful servant.
Charlie, you put all this together, my man. Let's hear it.
I am just humbled by God. That's all I can say. It's done. I want you to remember that we did not earn this. This is God's mercy on our country.
Hi everyone and welcome back to the George Collection. I'm Rachel Rightside Blonde. Well, it's been a very somber week with the passing of Charlie Kirk. About this time last week, I was just about to head out to my studio to film episode 167 when I got word about what happened in Utah. And like all of you, I was glued to the TV hoping and praying that Charlie would be okay. But as we know now, he was not. I think it's been very eye-opening this past week of time to see both the outpouring of love and also the disgusting displays of hatred, both extremes. I can honestly say I had no idea that there would be people celebrating someone's death. I didn't realize that our country had gone that far south. But I also, in the same breath, can't believe how many young people are finally waking up to see that this was a young person, this was someone who was just speaking his mind, and he didn't deserve to die for it. So I think we've seen extremes on both ends, both good and bad. One thing I realized as I reflected this last week, in terms of George Magazine, JFK Jr. and Charlie Kirk, I really think that JFK Jr. and Charlie Kirk would get along because they both enjoyed the banter of politics. They both enjoyed just the political process in general, and they encouraged both sides to get involved. They wanted us to obviously have opinions, but they also both wanted us to know why we had those opinions. We should be able to back up our reasoning as to why we believe the things we believe. The George magazine of the 1990s was way ahead of its time. It was a place that Democrats and Republicans could go. They could write articles and someone could read both sides in one magazine, which is such a novel concept these days. But I feel like that's what Charlie Kirk really stood for. He believed in freedom. Obviously, he's a Christian, so everything is based in that Christian upbringing. But he also was an American, so he believed in freedom. He would pray for people if he disagreed with them. There was not a mean bone in his body. I think if you watch the videos, you'll obviously see that. Another theme that I connected between George and Charlie Kirk is the concept of the mainstream media being kind of controlled. So George was kind of a new concept back then, bringing Republicans and Democrats together in one magazine. And Charlie having a conversation on a college campus where most of the people there are Democrats and he's a staunch Republican, that is a pretty crazy thing to do in today's day and age. So they both kind of pushed the boundaries when it came to political discourse. There's an obvious comparison between JFK and Charlie Kirk. They both were assassinated for saying things that went against the mainstream narrative. There's been a lot of speculation and maybe even comparisons between who was responsible for both of those assassinations and what their motives would have been for those. Another comparison between Charlie Kirk and JFK Jr., I feel like they both could have been president had the events not happened the way they did. They both were charismatic. They both had a ton of intelligence. They both knew what the political establishment was about at its core. They understood the evil. They understood that there's a shadowy government that's really running our government. I think both of them understood that. So I think they both would have been really good presidents later on in their lives. I had the opportunity to go to the RNC in Milwaukee, and this was, of course, right after the Butler rally, and Charlie Kirk was there. And I remember walking up to his booth. He was on air talking to different people, and he looked over and made eye contact with me a few times, kind of smiled, was very, very nice. I took a short video, but he made me really nervous because I thought, is he going to come over here with that microphone and ask me a question? Because if that's the case, I'm going to back away. I got really camera shy all of a sudden, so I backed away. But I did get a video, and I find it interesting that this was what he said in this short little video clip that I took of him that day.
You're making an intentional decision.
I believe it was divine intervention.
Obvious.
And libs are not.
No matter what, Charlie Kirk looked at everything through the lens of faith. And I think that he would want us all to do the same thing, even about his assassination. He would want us all to learn something and to get closer to God from this tragedy. Charlie Kirk has been compared to today's MLK Jr., and I think a lot of people in the younger generations are starting to wake up. Just in my personal life, there's people that never talked about politics or really didn't care much about it, and they're starting to talk about it. They're really shocked that someone could be shot just for speaking their mind in America. I think that really woke up a lot of young people. And I wanted to read something out of the June 1999 George magazine from the editor's letter from JFK Jr. And keep in mind, it's June 1999, so 1 month prior to JFK Jr.'s plane crash. It says this: "Stars among us. On some positions, cowardice asks the question, is it expedient? And then expedience comes along and asks the question, is it political? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right?" And this was from the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. from his last Sunday sermon preached at Washington National Cathedral 4 days before his death. The end of his editor's letter says, "And while we at George share your skepticism about many in Washington, we've always believed that political leaders can inspire a sense of pride and possibility. These two men have done just that. So this summer, by all means, see Star Wars. Enjoy the special effects, the drama of good versus evil. But don't walk out thinking heroes exist only in the movies." Two very important topics have been brought up because of the Charlie Kirk assassination. Number one is freedom of speech, and number two is our Second Amendment rights. In this same issue with the MLK Jr. quote at the beginning in the editor's letter, there's an article called "Lock, Stock, and 235 Million Smoking Barrels. Firearms are an integral part of America's past, but after a devastating massacre at a Colorado high school and several multi-million-dollar lawsuits aimed at gun manufacturers, the gun's place in American life has never been more loaded." It's basically a history of guns and how they came over here. So 1492, searching for India, Christopher Columbus stumbles upon the New World instead. The directionally challenged explorers brings along a hand cannon, the first gun in North America. 1911, the Sullivan Law. This New York state law is the first to require a permit for the purchase of a handgun. The NRA fires back with its first written criticism of gun control. 1911. 1995, Bush bows out. Rankled by the NRA's depiction of federal agents as jackbooted thugs, George Bush resigns his membership. 1995. 1971, movie marketing. Sales of Smith & Wesson's .44 Magnum increased dramatically following the release of the film Dirty Harry, proving that product placement is as important for guns as it is for soda and snack food. And then on page 29 in this same issue, there's an NRA ad. It says, "This gun came to America on the Mayflower. The right to own it didn't. That right came with the blood and bravery of countless patriots whose valor now bestows it at birth upon every U.S. citizen." The NRA Firearms Museum outside Washington, D.C. is indeed a world-class collection of guns, but it's also the history of man's rise to freedom from oppression and the sweet victory of liberty over tyranny. I encourage you to participate in the majesty of that never-ending story as a member of the NRA. I'm the NRA, which is interesting because a lot of people are saying, I'm Charlie Kirk. That's kind of the new phrase, is everyone's saying that they are Charlie Kirk. So that's kind of interesting that it says, I am the NRA, and Charlie Kirk people are saying, I am Charlie Kirk. There's a quote that basically states, if you kill a tyrant, his rant or his rule ends. But if you kill a martyr, his rule just begins. And I feel like we're really seeing that today, with a lot of people starting their own chapters of Turning Point, the movement of I am Charlie Kirk, and a lot of young people waking up and really taking a long, hard look at their lives and really asking themselves, what do they want to be remembered for? The ripple effect of Charlie Kirk's assassination will echo on for generations to come. That does it for this episode of the George Collection. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time.
Of this extraordinary magazine, George, which is a hoot of a magazine. I thought you were a lawyer.
I was.
What happened?
Well, we decided, actually taking a cue from folks like yourself and you around the 1992 election, that there was an opportunity here to change the definition of a political magazine. Certainly the way Americans were accessing information about politics and politicians was changing. Candidates were appearing on late night talk shows, on talk radio, on sitcoms, and there was a kind of a leveling process, and while the rest of media clearly had caught up with that, we felt that political magazines per se hadn't.
Your mother was a hell of an editor at Doubleday.
That's what I hear.
Would she have liked George?
I think she would have.